What's up? What's up? Welcome to another episode of Bitches Love Sports. This is your host, Jazz Monet. Like always, let me know if you can hear me. I'm running this by myself, so sometimes the sound doesn't go right, and there's nobody sitting on the other side of me with headphones to let me know if that's the case. So, I don't normally do post game shows, but it is the last game of the season, or the last game of the season for the Cowboys just happened. They clinched the number 2 seed, which several weeks ago nobody saw coming. What else? Won the NFC East. So I felt like if there was ever a time to try this whole live post game show thing, tonight would be the night. Now, one thing I will say is this is one of those nights that I truly, truly wish I could take calls from y'all because I just feel like there's so much to say about this game. I've already seen, I'm a fangirl at heart, right? So if y'all have watched my show from the beginning, you know I'm not only a fan of players, I'm not only a fan of teams, I'm also a fan of other content creators. What's up, Eastside Harold? How are you? Thank you for participating in the chat. So yeah, the reason why I'm just now going live is because I've been on Twitter, I've been watching other content creators, I've been seeing what people have to say, I've been watching ESPN Sports Center, listening to the interviews, just to get just a vibe check where everybody's at. And it's been truly entertaining. I almost didn't go live because that's how entertaining it's been. And I mean everything from people talking about the Cowboys win to the shock over the Eagles loss. Like, honestly, I didn't even know which one to start with. But I'm going to start with the Cowboys win because that's my team. There's plenty of time to rag on the Eagles later and plenty to talk about when it comes to that, too. Because honestly, for weeks, I've been saying that they were in trouble. And I remember a couple of Eagles fans kind of going off on me about that. And what it was we were in a Twitter space. And it was after a particular game. I don't remember the game, but I saw a Jason Kelsey interview and I saw a Jalen Hurts interview. And I was like, these guys do not look confident. I think it was the week that they were coming to play the Cowboys, actually. And I was like, these guys do not look confident at all. And these fans went the fuck off. They were like, no, not our team. You know, they had a rough game. They're having a rough couple weeks. They got new coordinators, yada, yada, yada. But they'll be all right. They don't lack confidence. And I'm like, Jason Kelsey just said y'all aren't playing well and they don't know how to fix it. Like that verbatim is like lacking confidence. And then not to mention over the summer, you know, people arguing with me about just the problems that might arise because of the new coordinators and whatnot. But anyway, we'll get back into that. Our Cowboys, that game was something else. There are a number of places to start, but I'm going to start with how good they really looked on the road. Um, and I'm jumping right into it, by the way, because I don't plan on being here long. So if you're watching, I do see that there's several people watching. It's hard to tell how accurate that number is, but if you want to say something in the comments, feel free to say that. But yeah, how good they looked on the road. When I went live earlier today, one of the things that I said was the Cowboys had nothing to be concerned about except for some of the unpredictable things that tend to happen whenever they face a team that seemingly has nothing to play for, a game that looks like it's supposed to be an easy win on paper, and then for some reason, for whatever reason, those teams will just show up and look like a completely different team. And honestly, in the first quarter, it did look like it was going to be kind of one of those games, especially after we had the opportunity to capitalize off that turnover. And instead, we ended up with a blocked field goal, no points to show for it. And when we took the ball over, when that ball was turned over and we took over in their territory, I remember thinking to myself, it kind of looked like they were taking risks they wouldn't normally take. It kind of seemed like they were playing a little bit more loose. And I couldn't tell if it was because the offense had just gotten off the field or if it was because they just kind of thought that the 3 points would be a given. Could be either one, but it kind of felt that way. It kind of felt like they just figured, well, worst case scenario, we walk away with 3 points. They ended up walking away with nothing. And it was at that point that I started to get a little concerned, like, oh no, this is one of those games where the team that has nothing to play for some reason, just shows up like a completely different team, and this ends up being a dogfight that it shouldn't be. But luckily, Cowboys got back on track really quickly. We actually had a run game today. That was phenomenal. Another thing that I mentioned earlier today was I said, hey, the communication's got to be on point. They've got to figure out how to communicate better and do more pre-motion or pre-snap motion on the road. Saw all of that. And not only that, but we were just seeing excellent levels of play across the board. Like, not only did they show up as a competent team, ready to get the job done, but literally every single person, especially on the offense, because I think a lot of people were worried about the O-line, right? But everybody like you could hardly even tell there were backups in. Honestly, I was concerned. I was like, please do not let Dak Prescott get hurt in the last game of the season against the fucking Commanders. Like, I know he's got to play. He's got to play. But I was just like, please let him be protected. And he 100% was, sometimes to the point where it was literally unbelievable. The one play that sticks out in my mind, that I'm eventually going to have to find film for so that I can talk about it again on Tuesday, was when it was something in goal, and Dak Prescott ends up, he has a ball in his hand and he's moving to the left, he's moving to the right, he's literally pointing. Like, that's how much time he had. And I remember the announcers it was at that point that they said something along the lines of, oh, there's no better duo in the league right now than Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. And I agree. There's no better duo in the league. Absolutely. But everybody on the field had to play their role in that moment in order to make that play work. And I call it a play. I use that term loosely. I don't think that was like actually how the play was created, right? But everybody on the field had to do their job in order for that to turn out the way that it turned out. Because had anybody on the O-line let up at any point, or had anybody else who was blocking anyone or who was distracting another person on defense, had they let up or not done what they were supposed to do, that would not have gone how it went. Everybody had to play their role. So it was plays like that I was just like, goodness, this team looks like they're locked in, ready to go into the playoffs, clicking on all cylinders. It was amazing. Tony Pollard was super impressive. Not only for the number of carries he had, but the number of yards, the yards per carry that he had. There was one particular play where, and I said, I'm not a proponent of players getting injured. That's not something I celebrate or something that I'm happy about. But it was when it was on one of his touchdowns when he was trying to get into the end zone, and he ran over like 3 people. And one of those people ended up having to leave the field. And I just remember, like, there was a time where you never would have guessed Tony Pollard would be the guy to run somebody over and make them have to leave the game, even temporarily. Earlier this season, that was one of the big questions. Like, can he be the aggressive running back that we need? Like, can he be a power running back? Can he do this? Can he do that? Can he carry the ball that many times? Can he get this many yards? Yada, yada, yada. And he stepped up in a lot of ways. Like, earlier in the season, a lot of people were complimenting his pass blocking and whatnot. But I think tonight we really saw what he's made of in terms of being a running back and just how willing he is to do the dirty work. Now, he's still not as angry of a runner as Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle is on a whole nother level. And it really got to the point where it's just like, okay, in case anybody forgot, like, Rico came out there and was like, let me remind y'all of how I do it. They were both looking really, really good, really phenomenal. Dak Prescott, there's so many things to say about him. I don't even know where to start. I'll say this, though. This is something I've been thinking about for half the season, because a lot of people have been talking about the here we go cadence, and we've seen videos on it. We've seen people try to imitate it. We've seen people make fun of Cooper Rush for not being able to do it. And I think the reason why it's so hard for other people to do the here we go cadence is because there is a piece of Dak Prescott's soul in that cadence. That cadence has 8 seasons of just pain and disappointment and frustration and being disregarded and discounted and talked about, all wrapped up in it. As a matter of fact, it's not a cadence. That is an incantation. Like, when he says, here we go, he's putting his soul into that. And you can really tell just from the way that he's played this season. It's been phenomenal. Like many people have pointed out today, during the offseason, he had a quote that went kind of viral where I don't think he actually said, I won't get 10 interceptions this season, but that's how it was interpreted. And that's how it was talked about. And there were so many people in the media who were like, how can he say he won't get 10 interceptions? What does he think he's going to do differently? He's just interception prone. He's accident prone. That's just who he is. There were so many people, even with different people calling plays, with a new offensive coordinator, with a new offense being installed, even with so many things coming out of the Dallas Cowboys camp about how different this offense was and how much of a difference it made to be on the same page. There were so many people who just did not believe that Dak Prescott could level up even more. A few weeks ago, another content creator, am I frozen? Okay. A few weeks ago, another content creator, Law Nation, shout out to Law, who I think might also be live right now. But a few weeks ago, he reminded me of one of the conversations that we had when he was a guest on my show. And it was when he asked the question, do you think Dak Prescott has peaked? And at the time, I was like, nah, I don't think he's peaked. I was like, I think we've seen him peak in one way, but I think there are other ways that he can peak. I think there are other skills that he's going to develop, and so we'll see another peak. So like, yeah, he has peaked in one sense, and the sense that I was talking about was him being, like this athletic, running quarterback. Like I thought we had seen the best we were going to see in that sense. But I was like, when it comes to commanding the offense, when it comes to manipulating defenses, when it comes to just the different things that he can do to show how smart he is as a quarterback, I don't think he's peaked there yet. I think we have yet to see that. And this season, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of the smart side of Dak Prescott. We've seen a lot of what made people so impressed by him coming out of college. Like, you can read articles written from when he was still in college where they talked about just how smart he was and how good he was at reading defenses. And that wasn't the part people chose to focus on. People chose to focus on the athletic side of him, which, don't get me wrong, was very impressive, and he did a lot with it. But it's not like this side of him is new. I really just think that he needed the right people around him to bring it out. And so that's why I literally can't say enough about what we're seeing in terms of how he's commanding the offense and manipulating the defenses and leading his offense and just showing what he can really do, whether he's in the pocket, scrambling, escaping, taking the ball in the end zone himself. He's really proven to the world how good of a quarterback he can really be. And I would say how good of a quarterback he is, but to be honest, I honestly think that he can really be even better. And I know that's saying a lot because he's already in MVP conversations, but I really think that he can be even better. I think there's a level of Dak Prescott that we'll see at some point where it'll go from him being talked about as an MVP to where it will be undoubted, to where people will not be able to deny it. I think one of the reasons why Lamar Jackson is being talked about so much, or I shouldn't even say one. There's a few reasons why Lamar Jackson has been talked about. One, if you watch Lamar Jackson more than you watch Dak Prescott, you're gonna look at him as probably the better quarterback, because like I watch Lamar Jackson, I'm just like, watching him is very impressive. He's impressive in different ways than Dak Prescott. And so I think some of it just really comes down to personal preference, whose style you like better. And then just also game for game, he's had fewer mistakes. He's beat the types of teams that the Cowboys have lost to. So it's very easy for people to make that argument. If you look at what the Ravens did to the Dolphins, games like that are what people will point to when they say Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. And so I'm not really mad at it. I like Lamar Jackson. He's a great quarterback. It's not like it's some trash quarterback that they're trying to give the award to over Dak Prescott. Okay, whatever. But I do think there will come a time where people will not be able to deny it. They won't be able to argue that Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in the NFL. You've already got a lot of people saying it. There are just some naysayers. There's some naysayers out there who don't really see it that way. And that's fine. I'm not mad at it. But the person that I really want to talk about is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb. Oh my God. I do not have the words. I literally do not have the words. So I started this podcast. For anyone who doesn't know, I started this podcast back in July of 2021. And at the time, I was still a Saints fan. I grew up in Louisiana, watched the Saints, but I was a sports fan in general. I just watched a lot of teams, college teams, pro teams. I watched basketball. And when the podcast started, we were covering a lot of the Olympics because the 2020 Olympics got pushed to 2021 because of the pandemic, things that we forget, right? And the Cowboys were on Hard Knocks. And me and my co-host at the time, we were like, yeah, let's watch Hard Knocks and then come on the show and talk about it every week. The Cowboys are right down the street. We should pay more attention to them. My co-host at the time had never watched American football. She's from Spain. And she hadn't watched American football at all. Didn't have a team We start watching Hard Knocks. She falls in love with Ezekiel Elliott. Oh, he's so great. He's my favorite player now. Can't wait to watch this whole football thing and see what he does. And I'm watching and I see CeeDee Lamb and I'm like, oh, I kind of remember him from college. And I just stopped kind of paying attention to him because like he was a player that I liked, but he wasn't like a favorite. But I remember liking him. And as I'm watching Hard Knocks, I'm like, you know what? I don't know why I stopped paying attention to this guy. He's kind of awesome. So football season starts and we decide we're going to follow the Cowboys. And we go from being people who are following the Cowboys to being fans of the Cowboys. And I especially was a fan of CeeDee Lamb. And that was a really rough year to be a CeeDee Lamb fan because so many people were questioning his worth, his ability. He was wearing the 88, which carried a lot of weight. And there were people who were saying that he should not be in the 88 club, that he didn't deserve the number, that he would never be a number one receiver, that he would never be an elite receiver. I think people forget how people were talking about CeeDee Lamb, and I like when people recount it, right? People will talk about the fact that, CeeDee Lamb had to earn his respect as a number one. They'll mention that, but they really don't talk about just how bad CeeDee Lamb was being talked about. Like there were really people on Twitter who were just saying terrible things about him every week. There were people who were campaigning to have him change his number, to have him literally kicked out of the 88 club. This was a topic that was being discussed on mainstream sports media. Fast forward about a year, I end up writing for Inside the Star, a Dallas Cowboys blog. And here's one of the things that I ended up writing in an article that I wrote about CeeDee Lamb. I said, in the past, most negative criticism of CeeDee Lamb's play fell into a few different categories. So these were all the areas where they were talking about CeeDee Lamb. I said, lack of physicality / struggles with playing through coverage, too many dropped passes, poor route running, an inability to get open, and overall lack of consistency. Now think about that. Now, when I say that those were areas where CeeDee Lamb was receiving criticism, all that was true. He was having problems in all those areas, and he did get called out on it pretty consistently. And if you compare that to the version of CeeDee Lamb that we see right now, oh my goodness, he's just grown by leaps and bounds. And I just wrote this last year. Now, when I wrote this last year, I was talking about how he improved. One of the things that I mentioned specifically about his drop passes. This is one of the things that I wrote. I said, one thing that has raised his overall grade, I was talking about his grade on PFF. I said, one thing that has raised his overall grade is the improvement he's made in the area of drop passes. CeeDee's last recorded drop pass occurred in week 10. That was the only drop pass he's had over the last 9 games. As of right now, his drop pass percentage for the season so far is 5.5%. By the end of week 13 in 2021, however, his drop pass percentage was 18.8%. So I wrote this in week 13 of last year. So week 13 of 2021, his drop passes were 18.8%. By week 13 of 2022, that was only 5.5%. Then I said, based on the PFF calculations for this season alone, after week 6, CeeDee's drop pass rate was 8.3%. But then for weeks 7 through 13, there was a drastic decrease to 2.7%. So I say all that to say, like, CeeDee has steadily been making improvements in all of the areas where people were criticizing him and saying that he lacked ability and that he lacked skill. This isn't something that happened overnight. And that's one of the things that makes it so much more respectable is the fact that not only I'm freezing again. I have my camera there so I can see that I'm still live, but I can also see here that it's kind of like freezing and locking up. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so this isn't something that happened. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna close a few tabs real quick just to see if we can like mitigate this from being an issue. I'm just going to drag this into a separate window and then I can close all of these. And maybe that'll solve any problems that we have. All right, so hopefully that'll help. But yeah, so I say all that to say this wasn't something that happened overnight. This wasn't something that happened in one offseason. This is something that CeeDee Lamb has been working on literally since he got into the league, and maybe even before that. He's not one to really brag about what he does in the off season or brag about what he works on. Now, the trainers that he works with, they'll brag on him. That was one thing I noticed in the off season is that like CD doesn't post a lot to social media, but if you figure out who he's training with, they love posting videos of him. And that's really the way to get off-season CD Lamb content is to figure out who his trainers are. So he's not one to brag and post videos of himself and be like, look what I'm doing, look what I did. But he's steadily been working on this, just like every single area, the dropped passes, the aggressiveness, the route running, just boom, boom, boom. He's been getting better and better. And even though he hasn't really been posting videos of himself, he's been telling us. Like, if you listen to his post-game interviews, you watch him during his locker room availability, he's been saying, hey, I am that guy. Hey, I am elite. Y'all just don't see it yet. Hey, I'm getting better. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna be one of the best. I'm one of the best. I'm one of the best in the league. He's been telling us this entire time. And as someone who's been a CD Lamb fan for several years, I could not be more excited. I could not be more proud. I could not be more happy to see him reach this point and actually get a lot of the praise and accolades that he truly, truly deserves. Especially just knowing, this isn't something that he just woke up with. He didn't come in the league like this. This wasn't something that just came out of nowhere, that he was naturally gifted to do. Like, he has worked hard to get to this point. Everything that we're seeing from the run blocking, the way he blocks for other receivers, the way that he figures out a way to get open when Dak Prescott needs him to be open, the way, like, even, I even tweeted about this, when he stretched to get the ball across the plane. And I'm like, last week, he fumbled the ball off the field and it ended up being a turnover when he tried to do that. Fast forward to this week, and he's got it not only to where he gets the score, but he actually holds it for a few seconds. Like, so even week to week, you can see improvement. Like, I love CeeDee Lamb so much. I really, really do. And I just do not have the words to even express how proud I am of him and how happy I am for him as a CeeDee Lamb fan. So, let's see if I took any notes or made any other tweets about other things that I want to talk about. Not really. Part of me wants to talk about the Eagles and part of me doesn't. I'm going to say this. And I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I do kind of feel bad for Jalen Hurts. I do, just a little bit. Only because I feel like people like really crowned him, and they didn't acknowledge the work that was still left to be done. And I know this for a fact, and I've mentioned this before. Back in February, when I was asked who was the best quarterback in the NFC, I said it was Dak Prescott. And this was after the Philadelphia Eagles had made it to the Super Bowl, and although they did not win, Jalen Hurts got a lot of credit. The Philadelphia Eagles got a lot of credit for getting there. And, props to them. It's not easy to get there. They definitely deserve to celebrate that as an achievement, by all means. Fans, that's something to be excited about if you want to be excited about it. But one of the things that I said was that Jalen Hurts just hadn't been through what Dak Prescott had been through. I hadn't seen him do enough to say that he was overall a better quarterback. I needed to see more. I'd seen him have a better season. Yes, last year, Jalen Hurts had a better season than Dak Prescott. But I was like, to overall just say that he's a better quarterback, no. Like, I couldn't honestly say that. And so I got a lot of heat for that. And so that's how I know that people weren't really taking into account all the growth that he had to do, and all the improvements that he still needed to make to actually be a complete quarterback. And now we're seeing it. And now he's not receiving any grace whatsoever, not even from some of the biggest, most boisterous fans in his fan base. Check Lord Brunson's Twitter page if you want to see what I'm talking about. He is getting zero grace whatsoever. And so that's the one reason why I do kind of feel bad for him, because I'm just like, in the grand scheme of things, he's still a young quarterback. He's still learning. And I'm just like, damn, dude, like, you were really up one day and down the next. But I mean, hey, that's the way it goes. We saw Dak Prescott go through it. We've seen the Cowboys go through it, just receive a lot of criticism, even when it seemed like they were still developing, still figuring things out, dealing with personnel changes, dealing with injuries. So yeah, it is what it is. I must say, though, like, I did not expect the last few weeks of the season to go the way they went. A few weeks ago, it was damn near a given that the Cowboys were going to end up with the 5 seed. And there were very few people, I would say even as recent as probably maybe 4 weeks ago or so, that if you said the Eagles are going to lose the rest of the games for the season, and the Cowboys are going to end up with the 2 seed, a lot of people would not take that bet. They would not believe it. Yet here we are, and it's happening. And like I said, when I said that the "here we go" cadence is more of an incantation, that's one of the things that I talk about. People talk about superstitions and shit in sports all the time. But you gotta admit, it is kind of ironic that all this is happening around the same time that Jimmy Johnson was being inducted into the Ring of Honor. What's up, JV? How's it going? I'm just chatting. Feel free to put some comments in the chat. Earlier, I was like, this is one of those nights that I wish I could take calls from you guys. I got to figure out how to set that up because it's one of those nights I really want to hear from the fans, and I'm just sitting here talking. I'm sitting here being a fan. I'm being the fan, which I'm used to being. But whatever you want to say, put as many comments in the chat box as you like. But yeah, it's really weird the way the last few weeks of this season have gone. Not a lot of people would have believed that the Eagles would have not only thanks, Harold, I appreciate that. Not only would the Eagles win enough games for the Cowboys to win the NFC East, because I think a few weeks ago it was like, oh, the Eagles need to lose a game and the Cowboys need to win these few games, and that was kind of thing. Like, we just needed the Eagles to lose more games than us. And the Eagles just went above and beyond. It's probably the only way that they've gone above and beyond all season, if I'm being honest. They went above and beyond, and they were like, you know what? To play it safe, we will lose every game for the rest of the season. We're just going to lose out and make sure y'all have the path through the playoffs that y'all need to have. JV said he's hyped. I've seen the Cowboys win. Okay, so I'm not showing it very much, but I'm hyped too. I'm just tired. It's been a long ass day. I've been up since like 5 a.m. training clients and working out myself. And it's also kind of hard to be like hyped by yourself. And also this is something that I'm not used to doing. So shout out to everybody who's watching and everybody who's participating in the comments. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Eagles definitely went above and beyond and just lost every single fucking game. And I'm just like, this could not be a better setup because, not only are the Cowboys set up to have games at home, which is playing to their strength, but honestly, one of the people who earlier in the season, people would have thought that the Eagles would have been one of the tougher opponents that we might end up facing in the playoffs. I think, between the Eagles and the 49ers, people are like, either of those teams, if we have to face them in the playoffs, you never know what might happen. And now people are like, man, Eagles might be one and done, honestly. Tori said, I thought Philly was a 2022 Vikings midseason. Teams just beat themselves. You know what? That is 100% true. I really do think that they did beat themselves in a lot of ways because when you look at, and I haven't watched 100% of all of their most recent games, but from what I have seen, a lot of it has come down to just them not seeming cohesive as a team, just like culturally, and also just not doing what they need to do on the field. Just like the defense just being abysmal. Like, are y'all even trying? Or like there have been a couple of plays where I've seen Jalen Hurts, there's one in particular, and I remember this because they talked about it on ESPN, where Jalen Hurts was, just kind of threw up a desperation pass into the end zone to attempt to score, and nobody went up for it except for somebody from the opposing team, and it ended up being a turnover. And it's just like, they look like they don't want it. And they've looked that way for weeks. They've literally looked that way for weeks, and they've been talking like it for weeks. And so it's like people have been talking about whether or not Sirianni might be let go, whether he might be fired. And I don't see that happening. I don't see them going that far, but they've got to do something because this isn't, people are talking about personnel and stuff, but this isn't just a personnel issue. You can look at them, you can listen to them, and you can tell this is a cultural issue. There is a problem in the locker room. There's a problem organizationally. They have issues to solve just between them. But whatever the issues are, it's spilling over onto the field. JV said the best setup would be smacking Lisa Harold around. Y'all are so silly. Oh my God. I don't know why y'all pick on Harold. Well, I do understand why y'all pick on Harold so much. I understand, actually. So yeah, There aren't many better things I could ask for. Oh, I was kind of waiting around to see if any of the interviews would be posted. I saw part of Mike McCarthy's interview on ESPN on SportsCenter, and they asked him how he felt about the fact that the Green Bay Packers, that they would be facing the Green Bay Packers in the first round of the playoffs. And he played it super, super cool. But I'm like, there's no way that he's not kind of looking forward to that game. Or maybe he's not. Maybe with Aaron Rodgers being gone, he's not looking forward to it as much. You know, the organization has changed since then, so maybe not. I could be wrong. Maybe he really is relaxed about it, but he played it super, super cool. Like, as I don't know if the word unhype is a word. As unhype as I seem right now, he seemed even more unhype. He was just kind of like, okay, we did the thing, we got the 2 seed, now we got to prepare to face the Packers next week. And honestly, I'm not worried about the Packers. First thought that comes to mind is, them trying to put Jair Alexander probably on CeeDee Lamb. And Jair Alexander is good. Like, he's an asshat. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's made headlines recently for just doing dumb shit. He runs his mouth. He's an asshat. But, like, don't let his silly persona fool you. Like, he's a really good player. He's definitely not somebody that we want to sleep on. So that will be something that I'll be looking more into in terms of, what I expect from that matchup. But, honestly, that's the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to what I'm thinking about in terms of the Cowboys facing the Packers. But it's definitely not one of those matchups where I'm like worried, especially with them visiting the Cowboys and the Cowboys being at home. I don't really feel a way about it. So I feel like this is going to be a great postseason for the Cowboys. I feel like we're going to see even more of Dak Prescott's greatness and CeeDee Lamb's greatness. I'm excited. So that being said, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to cover, if I just want to wait till Tuesday. Because I like to wait till Tuesday because that way, like, all the press conferences on Monday happen and we have some things to, like, really react to. And I'm looking at the Cowboys page and they haven't really posted any sound yet. Clement says, don't let McCarthy fool you at all. This is a game that he wants to win, especially since it's in the playoffs, 100%. Jair Alexander versus CeeDee Lamb is one of the matchups. Yes, agreed. And then not only that, but there's a thing that I always talk about, that I always mention, is that there are these teams, for some reason, they show up different against the Cowboys. They just do. I couldn't tell you why, but after covering the Cowboys closely for a few seasons now, I'm like, I've seen it. I've seen it happen too many times. You think you know what a team's offensive scheme is going to look like. You think you know what their defense likes to do. And then the game happens, and then all of a sudden they're just doing something different. They're a completely different team. And not only that, but Jordan Love is on the ascent. He started off this season, people were worried about the team. People were wondering if the Packers would even keep Jordan Love, right? Because they were like, well, he hasn't developed there. Maybe he needs to change the scenery. Maybe he needs to go somewhere else. Maybe they need fresh blood with the Packers. That's how people were talking about Jordan Love. But these last few weeks, he's really been showing like, nah, all I needed was reps. All I needed was, a few games under my belt. All I needed was some experience. And now, like, he's really flowing. Like, he's doing his thing. I can't act like he's not somebody to pay attention to. I would compare him to kind of what we've seen in the past with quarterbacks like Brock Purdy. That's a good example. Like what we saw from Sam Howell last year, where Sam Howell really showed up, or even what we saw from Josh Dobbs. First time we played Josh Dobbs, when Josh Dobbs was with the Titans, people were like, oh, he's been passed from team to team. And then we played against Josh Dobbs, and it was just like, oh, no, this guy's actually good. He's actually a smart quarterback. He can actually lead an offense. And then we saw Josh Dobbs again with the Cardinals, and he did the same thing. I feel like it could definitely be that same vibe, where because he's on the ascent, we don't have a lot of evidence of how he plays and what he looks like, because he's kind of not changing it up every week, but he's like getting better every week. So there might be something else that's in his toolbox, or some other play that they're able to run that they weren't able to run last week or 2 weeks ago. And so you don't have as much film on who Jordan Love is now versus who he was 3 weeks ago. So you might only have one game to look at in terms of trying to determine who Jordan Love really is. That's how much of an incline that he's on. So while I do trust the Cowboys to get the job done, and I do believe that they'll win, it's definitely not a game that people should sleep on as like, oh, this is going to be an easy win. This is going to be something, simple that we can do. It's gonna be a game. It's gonna be a game. They're gonna put up a fight. And between Jordan Love and Jair Alexander, those two players alone are enough to pay attention to. Clement says they're a dimensional team right now as they pass the ball more than they run. Yes. If we get pressure on the QB, Jordan Love, we can't get turnovers. That is true. That is one aspect of his youth that still remains. Jordan Love is on the ascent. He's doing a lot better. He's learning how to command the offense better. He's getting the ball out quicker. He's doing all those things. But he does still get nervous when he's under pressure. And so he could make some mistakes, and we should capitalize on that. We have to balance on offense and got to watch out for Rashawn Gary. Agreed, 100%. I think you are spot on. I'm freezing again. Sorry. I'm trying to catch it when I freeze. So hopefully y'all are still hearing everything that I say, but the video is just freezing intermittently, so that's my bad. Let's see, what else? I don't know. I might call it here, you guys, and then just cover the rest on Tuesday. Or if they post these videos tonight and I'm not doing anything else, because, hashtag insomnia, I might come back and do another live once the video comes out. Let me check one more time and just see if they posted anything, because I would love to do some live reactions to some of these player interviews. Let's see. No, their post game is still on. So I know the interviews have happened because, like I said, JV said I'm here. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But yeah, I know the videos are. I know the interviews have happened because, like I said, I saw one on Sports Center, but they haven't been posted yet. So yeah, I might save my energy for that. So if not later tonight, then on Tuesday morning. It's hard to say. Like I said, I'm a personal trainer, and like even today, I got some more text messages that put more stuff on my schedule for this week. That this morning I got up and I was like doing my thing, and I'm like, okay, these are the days that I'm gonna go live. These are the days I'm gonna do content. And then like by this afternoon, I'm getting requests in my phone like, can you train this person? Can you do this fitness class? Can you do that? So I don't know. We'll see. But it might be Tuesday morning. It might be Monday night. It might be Tuesday night. I'm just trying to help everybody out with their New Year's resolutions and be a good personal trainer and do my job. So I'm really grateful, thankful for the people who have their notifications turned on and who show up whenever I just so happen to go live, despite the fact that it's kind of sporadic. Thank you for understanding. Maybe one day I'll be like one of the big content creators and I'll be getting paid for this and it'll be my job and I can just tell y'all what day and what time to show up. But until then, I got not quite a 9 to 5. It feels like a 5 to 9 and then like a 4 to 9. Like, yes, there are people who like to have personal training sessions at 5 in the morning. It happens. So yeah, but until then, thanks everybody for showing up. If y'all have anything else that y'all want to discuss, whether I go live tonight or on Tuesday, feel free to DM me, tweet at me. If you see me tweet anything, feel free to reply and I might respond to it kind of like I did earlier. But outside of that, thanks so much for tuning in to my first live post-game show. This has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm Bitch 2, and I'm out.